Greetings everyone. Today I want to discuss something very important in War and Order defense. As for me, I'm primarily an attacking player. I rarely focus on defense, except maybe when I'm reinforcing allies. Now, why is that? Simply put, I don't think defense is particularly advantageous in this game. Attacking is generally much more effective, and I'll explain why. In War and Order, when you're on defense, you don't control the battlefield, you're simply reacting to enemy attacks. Your city buffs and defensive bonuses are strong, but not enough to compensate for disadvantages like being outnumbered or overwhelmed. Enemy players can choose the perfect time and perfect setup to hit you, often when you're not ready. Meanwhile, when you're attacking, you control everything. You pick the timing, the target, the march compositions, and the buffs you want to use. You can chain attacks back to back to keep your opponent off balance. Even if you lose, you often lose less because you dictate the terms of the fight. Let's say a strong attacker is coming for you, maybe during Void or Frenzy. First off, in Frenzy, you're typically not supposed to defend, even with the new rule that gives you 50% more score. If you're an attacker, it's still not worth it. Most of the powerful artifacts are designed to work only when you're on the offensive. For example, there's absolutely no point in using the Gradient or Heavenly Spirit when defending. These simply don't work. Most of the really strong artifacts only activate during an attack. There are only a few artifacts that work for both defending and attacking, and some are exclusive to one or the other. For example, Golden Armor is geared toward defense, but in this game, defense isn't as favored as attack. If you're a solo player, you'll understand this very well, but let's say you've decided to defend. What's the best approach and what should you improve? One thing is certain, every defender needs Apollo's Bow. Why? Because it has a skill called Brute Force, which allows every troop you have to execute a power strike, dealing 50% more damage. This effect scales infinitely. No matter how many troops you have, they can all crit at the same time. The second crucial artifact is Athena's Aegis, but it needs to be activated, otherwise it's useless. As for more artifacts, there's really only one other option left: Golden Armor. The reason is simple. Its artifact skill reduces the damage taken by your troops when your castle is under attack by a specific percentage. However, there's a catch. This skill is exclusive to cavalry, so unless you primarily use cavalry, this artifact is essentially pointless, leaving us with very few viable options for defense. On the other hand, if you're an attacker, the situation is completely different. You have far more options at your disposal, making attacking much more favorable in this game. So, what else can you do to become a better defender? We've already covered one of the major issues, so let's move on to the second. Your defensive stats come primarily from two key sources, and they're very significant. The first source is artifacts, which you'll have access to as an early player, and even more so as you progress. Then comes your equipment, and finally, your totem. Here's where the problem lies. If you decide to focus on defense, you need to set your totem to the defense totem. If you don't, it won't be active when you're defending, which is a big issue. However, this comes with a drawback. You can only switch totems once a day due to the cooldown. This means if you set it to defense, you won't be able to use it effectively as an attacker. For example, if I set my totem to defense, it will be locked in that mode for a full day, and only after that will it go on cooldown. So if you don't plan to attack that day, you can switch to the defense totem, but keep in mind, it will only work for defending your castle. Now, here's another major problem: your gear and equipment. When defending, you usually don't want damage boosts. Those are more useful when attacking. At higher levels, the costs for upgrading equipment become outrageous. For example, level 28 gear requires around 900 obsidian steel per piece, and the next levels will likely demand over 1,000. It's really expensive if you want to build two sets of equipment, one for attacking and one for defending. You'll need to invest heavily to be effective. For instance, I tried to build a second set of equipment focused on a damage boost specifically for defending. This gear will only help when I'm defending. However, some pieces of equipment work well regardless of whether you're attacking or defending. For example, gear that reduces damage taken from specific troop types, like reducing damage from angels or archers, or increasing damage against infantry, works in both attacking and defending scenarios, since they target specific troops rather than specific situations. Unfortunately, the parts that are crucial for maximizing damage are heavily weighted toward attack. About 60% of my total damage comes from just two pieces of gear focused on attacking. So if I want to be just as efficient in defense, I need gear that provides damage reduction while defending, which isn't something most players are willing to invest in. Easy stats are straightforward and come from achievements. By now, most players should have accumulated a lot of these. For example, there's the Iron Line achievement, which gives a 6% damage boost when defending. Another is the Master achievement, which reduces the damage you take while defending. You just need to pay attention to the achievement descriptions and pick the ones that offer anything related to defense, like reducing the damage you take when defending. Now, finally, there's one last tip I want to share with you. When attacking, we usually prioritize march capacity to send as many troops as possible. However, when you're defending, you don't need to focus on march capacity. Instead, you can switch that skill to something more useful, like anti-infantry or any other skill that reduces damage from specific targets. Since you're defending your base, you already have the maximum capacity available, so there's no need to increase it further. These are some of the key strategies you should focus on. When it comes to beast talents, make sure you've selected the talent that reduces damage while defending. This is crucial because it works just like a damage boost does when attacking. That's it for today, everyone. Thanks for watching and have a wonderful day.